your midweek connection call. I am hoping to do a podcast that is going to make you feel connected to your African American heritage, not just the horrific parts, but the fun, the joy, the resilience, and the genius of it all. So we're going to have truth, we're going to have fun, and we're going to have blackness. Now, blackness is sometimes really universal, so this is going to appeal to everybody, but I have a specific focus on what appeals to me and my Black self and my Black friends and all of my brothers and sisters who may be of any color but really need to understand us a little more. It's news you might not see in the mainstream media, or news maybe you saw in the mainstream media, but not from the perspective that we'll talk about it. I don't feel like I know any more than you. I feel like we can kind of be on a journey of discovery together. There are things that I'm interested in that I'd like to know more about. I also get to go to a lot of really cool places and meet people that are doing amazing things. And I want to share that because so often the news just tells you why we're going to hell in a handbasket, when in fact, there's a lot of things to be hopeful about and a lot of things that we should be lending our energy, time, and effort and resources to make them bigger. And we can really fix all the stuff that makes us mad and sad. Don't just check out, we're going to check in. And launching today because knowledge is power. And I think that's the theme of Juneteenth. It is Juneteenth, even though it's not exactly like I was told it was, where the enslaved people of Texas finally heard that they were free, as if they'd been so isolated. Of course they were enslaved, but it wasn't just that they heard they were free. They really hadn't been free. The Confederate soldiers were not letting go of them. And it wasn't until the Union Army came and said, the Emancipation Proclamation was 2 years ago. You have lost this Civil War. These people are free. But of course, we all know that it wasn't true freedom. Even today, it's not true freedom. We had enslavement replaced by Jim Crow, replaced by mass incarceration, and now still disproportionate disparities in every, top of all the bad lists, bottom of all the good lists, but we're working on that. And Juneteenth reminds us of how far we've come. And now that it's been a national holiday for a few years, we're ramping things up, right? It's kind of like the King holiday became a day of service. And now that's what it is all over the place, even globally. So Juneteenth has become a day of recognition. And I was listening this morning, Ava DuVernay, the amazing producer, had a live stream going at Bryan Stevenson's new Monument to Freedom in Montgomery, Alabama. Famous, of course, for the Montgomery Brawl, but we won't talk about that. It's Bryan Stevenson that should be famous. He is the attorney who famously represents the condemned, the incarcerated, the poor. The movie Just Mercy that fine Michael B. Jordan played him in, I think exposed a lot of people to the work he does. He's still doing that work as founder and operator of the Institute for Justice there in Montgomery. So he was saying, don't just focus on, all the wrongs that were done, focus on the resilience and the fact that Black people, amidst all this agony, could still love. And we can still love. And we created things out of that, like jazz, like blues, like gospel, like other art, to help get through a thing. And now it's its own thing that everybody wants to have, right, and capitalize on and what have you. So there's a lot of joy that somehow was managed to be eked out of an experience that is almost unfathomable in the history of human civilization. But here we are. So Juneteenth is a day to reflect on all the good stuff that we're doing, not just the bad stuff that's happened. And I was turned on to a book recently by someone who had just written a book. And the book is called On Juneteenth, by the woman who wrote the story of Sally Hemings, the woman who was Thomas Jefferson's mother of many mixed children that he treated just like most slavers do, who kind of brought that to light. The stories brought to light, I think, is what the big deal of this generation is that we're having the advantage of. It's called On Juneteenth, and it's all about Juneteenth in Texas, because we think, that's where the word hadn't gotten to them in time. But Texas has a storied history involving enslavement that they never talk about. They talk about the oil man, they talk about the cowboys, the Alamo. They don't talk about the fact that white folks went to Texas to make it a slave owning state, and how they had to fight Mexico, which wasn't so into enslavement after just breaking free from Spain. But anyway, it's a great book, and it's called On Juneteenth, and I can't remember the author's name. But the author who turned me onto that book happens to be my guest today, because one of the things I want to do is to talk about things that are joyful. And one of those things for me, everybody who knows me knows, if you say I'm having a Bid Whist party, I say, where, what time, can I bring anything? And I'm there. So Bid Whist is a card game that all Black people know about. Very few white people know about it. So it's really a Black thing. I am in favor of spreading the word because I want to make sure that it is sustained. So my guest today is helping to spread the word. Lamont Jones, how are you?
Thank you for having me, Robin. Appreciate it.
So you wrote a book called The Gist of Bid Whist.
Yes.
And it's not just to teach bid whist, which is a good thing, teaching bid whist, because most bid whist players don't have time to teach. We say, go to the kiddie table, go to whatever, right?
That's right.
And that's not going to serve us because it's going to disappear if we keep doing that.
That's right.
Why do you think it's important to keep it alive?
I mean, you talked about joy and truth and
blackness.
Blackness.
Okay.
I love it. I mean, I think Bid Whist is an exemplar of that, right? This is a game that was originated in and nurtured by Black communities in the 20th century. And it's an enthralling art form, that deserves to be part of our present and part of our future, not just part of our past. So I'm glad that you're doing your part to keep it alive.
No, but you're really doing something. So you got a whole book, all right? You taught me some things in here, right? I didn't have to go through the how to play part, but the Pullman Porters and their role in spreading bid whist. I didn't have any idea about that.
I think that's why it's become an institution in Black communities, because of the way it was introduced to the nation, right? So when you think about poker and craps, they were introduced via the river boats, the gambling boats in the Mississippi River, right? Okay. Bid whist kind of roared onto the scene on the railways because of the Pullman Porters. And because the Porters commanded respect, right, their game became popular in communities across the country. So yeah, the Pullman Porters are instrumental in popularizing bid whist.
So they were delivering the Chicago Defender as well as a 6-0 trump.
Yeah, there you go. But you're right. They provided information that helped fuel the Great Migration. They tell people, hey, if you're down south and you need a place to stay away from this area, you might find a place over here. Or if you're looking for a job in Kansas City, talk to this person, that sort of thing. So they provided that sort of information.
And you point out that the Pullman Porters have a kind of spotty reputation. We think of them as kind of, fetch and shuffle. Yeah. That they were just going along to get along, and they were, it was a very menial type, job of, trying to please white folks on the train who were treating them any kind of way. But in fact, they had a lot of power.
No question. Well, first of all, they had one of the only jobs at the time that provided a pathway to the middle class. So that was important in and of itself. They weren't tethered to a particular factory or community. They traveled. So they were worldly, they were sophisticated, that sort of thing. And because they provided the sort of information that we talked about earlier, people respected them. For example, let me tell you about the new jazz artist, from up north. Or let me tell you about this bad blues record I heard down south. They were sharing that information and spreading the word. So yeah, people respected the Pullman Porters, no question.
Interesting you bring up jazz at this morning's dedication to the monument in Montgomery. Wynton Marsalis played. Wynton Marsalis and Brian Stevenson have developed quite a relationship and quite a body of research around the development of music from the enslaved, right? The way to express yourself, the way to not lose your mind, really, and the genius that has been born of that. Now, I happen to think that bid whist is also genius. Okay, so I mean, you're counting, all the books and 4 different suits, and and trying to strategize,
no question.
And the cards have backs on them, right?
Yes,
so you don't know what people have. Last night you had a book launch party.
Yes,
we're at one of my favorite restaurants in Chicago because it's owned by 2 of my favorite people. Don Thompson, who is the first and I think the only so far CEO of McDonald's. He's quite a big businessman, and his wife Liz Thompson, who runs an educational foundation, and they have a restaurant, and he's now has Cleveland Avenue, which invests only in Black businesses. So these are high-powered, highfalutin, but down-to-earth Black people. They both were raised, met each other, high school sweethearts, in the Cabrini Green housing development, right? And it still shows that they're down to earth. Absolutely. First of all, they had a bid whist party for your book, but it was hoity-toity. It was the high end bid whist players. Would you agree?
I would not describe it as hoity-toity because people.
Well, I don't mean that in a bad way.
No. People showed up and showed out, right? They were ready to play. So we first said, okay, we have a little workshop, a little mini workshop for newcomers, right? But if you already know how to play, go ahead and go to the back the room here and play with the experts, etc. If there were 140 people there, 100 left and said, I'm ready to throw down and start playing right away, right?
Right now.
So we had a few folks for the mini workshop, but yeah, people came ready to play, ready to have fun and enjoy the music, enjoy the vibe, enjoy the wonderful food. It was terrific.
It really is a game that brings people together because you're not just playing cards. what is the other aspect of Bid Whist?
Well, here's the thing. Well, a couple things. I want to go back to something you said about, the genius of the game. Because again, I think about the porters, and you might have 200 porters together on a layover before they depart to go to different places across the country. And in this setting, they weren't confined to segregation's ugly rules and stereotypes. They could revel in their full humanity, right? They could show their verbal wit and their mathematical acumen.
Show their verbal wit. That's called talking, which is a big part of Bid Whist. Okay?
That's it. Their intelligence, and they could. You're right. When the strategy matched up the way they wanted to, they would express that with a little smack talk. And so, yeah, I think that is certainly part of the genius of the game. But the part that moves me the most is not the competition, which I love. It's not the smack talk, which I love. It's the connection, right? I think that the game is a wonderful vehicle to foster conversation across generational gaps, across other societal divides, to foster connection. So yeah, the part about fostering connection is really what moves me about the game.
Wow. Well, which is interesting because last night after the party in the West Loop of Chicago, which is a very, it's the it area, right? Yeah. I went to my regular Bid Whist game, which is at 123rd National.
Oh, you went to 2 Bid Whist parties last night?
I want a little comparison, right? Okay. So when you talk about, that it's a bridge, right? To intergenerational, interracial, if we can get more white folks playing, and socioeconomic. So 123rd National in Calumet City. So it's not the hundreds that we think of and we might be afraid of, which I don't think that's fair either, because I played in the Wild Hundreds in Roseland. I played, because there are card parties that travel around to different taverns usually. Yeah. And this place is called Gino's Sports Bar. And we had a blast. They were playing the same kind of cards there, 115 blocks south as they were at Taste 222 for your event. And I showed them your book and they said, well, can he play? Okay. What's in that little book? Okay. It was a little skepticism, but they were happy to see that someone's doing something to try to keep it alive, because young people want to play spades for some reason.
No doubt.
Because it's easier, I say.
Doubt. I understand and appreciate the skepticism. I had a chance to play with the actor and comedian Craig Robinson not so long ago.
He loves Bid Whist.
He loves Bid Whist. And so I asked, I'm trying to promote the book. I said, hey, bro, can we take a picture with the book here, right? There were a group of us playing. He was like, you can take the picture, but don't put that book in front of me as if I need to learn how to play. I already know how to play, right? So
you turn everything into an opportunity to talk stuff. Michael Jordan is a very serious Bid Whist player. I don't play him because he probably bets on it. He bets on everything. But there are some people who think that Bid Whist is kind of below us, right? It's a slave game, is what I heard someone say. Kind of, that's too.
What?
Exactly.
All right. Here's the thing. I had a chance to meet America's foremost bridge player, a fellow named Bob Hammond. Okay, we were at some conference for bridge teachers, and I approached him. I said, hey, I'm working on this Bid Whist project. And he said, Bid Whist? He leans in. He said, Bid Whist is way more complicated than bridge, right? So that's coming from one of the top bridge players in the country. So
when I was at Gino's place last night, I also ran into 2 guys who are having a Bid Whist tournament this weekend. This weekend being July 20th. June 20th. I don't know when you're going to see this podcast, in Deerfield, Illinois.
What?
It's like a weekend package. You get your hotel room. They're going to have prizes. They have 1,000 members in their Bid Whist club. They have rankings. So somebody is keeping it alive, and they're trying to be intentional too about bringing the young people in.
I love that. First of all, the fact that you mentioned Deerfield, my dear bride, Stacy Sharp, raised in Deerfield, went to high
There's
school,
black
college,
people in Deerfield?
all in Deerfield. Absolutely, absolutely. And I have to tell my dad-in-law, about this, because he's still out in that area, and I'm sure he'll want to show up. He's the guy who inspired my favorite chapter in this book. It's about no Trump bids and no Trump strategies. So this fella inspired that. I'll share this really quickly.
Okay.
The first time I went on a date with Stacy, it was going very well, and then I asked her the fateful question. I was like, you play Bid Whist? And she was like, no, that's an old person's game, right? So then I'm like, all right, this isn't going to. And then she said, my daddy will sit there and play Bid Whist all day and on. I was like, is that right? We might have something to chat about.
Really, we play till we fall out. Okay, it's like we're out of food, go get some more food. We're out of liquor, go get some more liquor. If you're still playing, you're still playing.
I wonder what though. I would like to get in touch with those folks who are organizing that tournament though, because I think it's vital.
Let's go.
That we get the young people involved and engaged.
Yep. Nothing like a cash prize to get people engaged.
Well,
also, okay,
that'll work.
Well, I'm going to put information about that group. It's called Top of the World Chicago Bid Whist Club, and they're on Facebook. And I will get that information out because I want everybody to play. I have 3 grown children, and I do believe that all 3 of them have learned how to play, but I think they just don't want to. They say y'all talk too much smack. Okay,
I spent a little time with Cam, your son, and I can tell that he knows the rudiments and the fundamentals of the game, right? But as he put it, now my spades game is on point. So, I think he's a little bit more comfortable with his spades game. But here's the thing. I would say that, and I told Cam this, look, the Gist of Bid Whist is going to get you up to speed on Bid Whist. You're going to be comfortable. You're going to learn all the fundamentals. I'm very protective of the newcomers, right? But it's also going to turbocharge that spades game because so many of the principles in spades.
No spades game.
That's okay. Now, what they don't know, what Bid Whist has that spades doesn't have, Bid Whist has that knockout factor, right? Because you played spades, and if you get set early, it's over. You got to sit there and wait, and the other team is going to start bidding conservatively, and you got to do some exotic stuff like blind 6 or 10 or all this kind of nonsense.
And Trump is always spades. That's the problem.
It's over. In Bid Whist, it doesn't matter what the score is. Either team can win the game on either hand, right?
Yep.
It's got that knockout factor.
You come back.
There you go.
Out of the blue.
The games are never boring. They're always interesting.
But if you play, if you know what you're doing, if you pull your trump, nobody's going to come back and cut something that they shouldn't be cutting. But all of this is in your book, and I've enjoyed the part that I've read. I haven't read it all.
No worries.
Because in the middle of reading it, I don't always wear sunglasses. Did you know that? I was on the news for like 30 years. I never wore sunglasses.
I thought you were just stunting on me.
No, actually not. Okay, I had cataract surgery on both eyes. Not at the same time. They won't do them at the same time. We're going to do some segments on aging a little later on, in future podcasts, because all y'all going to have cataract surgery at some point. Okay, well, almost all. It's really the most common surgery there is. But that's why I'm wearing these sunglasses, and only be for another couple of weeks. Can't wear any makeup, all that fun stuff. But I was able to play Bid Whist, and I have been able to start your book. And I wish you luck because we really need this. I feel like when the beginners, the people that were learning last night, their room was bigger than the room with the so-called experts and intermediates, right? Because I think when they go to a Bid Whist party, they're too intimidated to say, I want to learn.
No doubt.
And we are mean, and we say, get out, go somewhere, right? But this was for them to learn.
I was heartened that they stayed the whole time. They were playing, they had questions, they were engaged, they were competitive, they were hooping and hollering and that sort of thing. How did you do, though? How did you do while you were playing?
I had a terrible night because first of all, I played against Don Thompson. He cheats. Okay, so then I played against Dorothy Tucker, who's not that great of a player. But at the end of I had the bid, and Bid was close. Just everybody else humor me. We had 3 books left, and we were making it right. And so I played a card, and I said I didn't think we could make this. And Dorothy throws down a queen of whatever it was and says, you didn't. Got you. And I'm like, it's downtown. That is not a winner. But my partner threw her hand in. Because she's listening. Don't ever listen to the opposition. Oh, no. Only listen to your partner, who shouldn't really be talking to you. No but that's kind of an advanced
basic. Yeah. Okay.
Best story from last night for me was a friend of mine named Alicia, a white woman.
Alicia Basu.
Right. She came running out of the learning room and said, I ran up Boston. I know Trump, boss. She was so excited. She's probably hadn't been to sleep since. So, absolutely. But everybody who started learning last night, or anytime you do, the key is to keep playing. And I just don't stop. Just find somebody, play with 3 open hands and whatever you got to do. It's a lot of fun. I wouldn't steer you wrong. It's part of Black Joy, and I appreciate you putting it in print. There's a few other Bid Whist books, but this is the latest one, and I really like it. Everybody should know that he's not writing this book as a career. He's actually a lawyer, and he's a big deal. but it does transcend a lot of things. So all right, and we'll put the information up about the book as well as this the tournament at the club that's happening up in the. Let me hold the book up. Okay, let's hold the book. We'll have bookends right here. The Gist of Bid Whist.
The culturally rich card game from Black America.
And it really is. So you guys, I really appreciate you joining me. One of my goals here is to be brief. I can't listen to really long podcasts, so I'm going to try to be brief every time, right? Okay. And the other thing that I want to try to do is to be interactive. We're going to figure out how you can join the podcast, and aren't we, Cindy Beasley?
We are. You got a comment. It says a Robin Robinson Bid Whist party is not for the weak. Happy Juneteenth.
Well, not for the week.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that nice? Okay, so I want to be interactive. We're going to find out how we can get your voice in this podcast. Cindy Beasley from Morally Sinful Productions works on the tech side, also the editorial side, and I have to thank her. I have to thank Nonstop Nick, my engineer, who is a DJ also. And guess what kind of DJ he is? House music. You know my house music? That could be your next book. That's a black thing. That's Chicago. All right. So for sure, in a future episode very soon, we'll be bringing you, what are we on? With the 31st annual. What are we on Chosen Few Picnic? Anybody know? It's been a long time. That's all I can say. They were young when they started the Chosen Few DJs and their picnic down the South Side. I'll give you a not just front row seat, but a seat on the stage. How about that? We'll bring you some of that house music picnic and a lot of other things we're going to do in the future. I want to talk about stepping. I want to talk about aging and that myth that black don't crack. So speaking of which, my best friend, she's evidence that it's not a myth, it's the truth. Jackie May. I won't tell your age. She's threatened. I tried. Do you, Marianne? You guys, we're going to try to have like people in here with me every week. So Wednesdays, your midweek connection. I'm Robin Robinson, and this has been your Other News.